Let's roll.
Good morning and welcome to the County of Berrien. It is a pleasure to have you all here this morning. Just a little bit of housekeeping. As a reminder, please turn off or silent all electronic devices. If you have any materials that you wish to have distributed to the board, please hand it to our Sergeant of Arms, which is Commissioner Jim Curran. And if you wish to address the board, please do so at the appropriate times in the agenda by stating your name, jurisdiction, and then you have 2 minutes to speak with the board. Moving on in the agenda with that being taken care of, roll call.
Bell. Curran.
Here.
Freeling.
Present.
Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick.
Here.
Ott.
Here.
Pittsburgh.
Here.
Ballrat.
Here.
Werfel.
Here.
Yarborough.
Present.
Elliott. Madam Chair, you have 10 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. We have a quorum. On the agenda next is the approval of the November 9th meeting minutes for the Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Is there support? Support. So it was moved by Pitchford, supported by Majerick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisitions? No? Perfect. Thank you.
All right, that will be coming around and we'll approve that during our 10:30 meeting under the consent agenda, consent calendar, pardon me. Now we come to the scheduled presentation and we have a discussion on the county's employee pension plan, and we have Shelley Jasper here, our Human Resource Director, and Doug James, our Financial Service Director, here to lead the discussion.
I'm just like,
Yep. While they get themselves set up, I'm going to slip to the back. So if you have any questions, I'll be back there.
Okay. Am I good? Yep. Well, Doug and I are here today to talk to you about what I feel is the most important benefit that we offer our employees. And it's just to give you a brief overview on our pension plan. Feel free to stop me and ask me any questions as the presentation progresses, and I'll try my best to answer them. So when people typically think of retirement, they think of a 401k plan. And that's a defined contribution plan. Our county pension plan is a defined benefit plan. It is not a defined contribution plan. So what are the differences? A defined benefit plan guarantees a specific monthly pension based on a formula, where a defined contribution plan is a tax deferred investment account funded by contributions from the employee and the employer. And when the employee retires, they just take their account with them. So there's no guaranteed monthly pension amount. Yep.
The bottom, the deferred contribution one, who manages that? Do we manage that, or is the employee allowed to move investments wherever they want them?
In defined benefit plan, the county's
In the defined
investment.
contribution.
Oh, we don't have a defined contribution plan. I'm just showing you the difference because most people think
Oh,
that
gotcha.
retirement is defined contribution. And yes, in defined contribution plans or 401ks, they're typically employee directed, where defined benefit is employer directed.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we mentioned defined benefit plans like ours have a benefit formula. We have 3 factors that make up what your county monthly pension will be. Those are the multiplier, average monthly earnings, also known as final average comp or FAC, and credited service, which is your length of service with the county. So in the county, our pension multipliers are a mandatory subject of bargaining, and they vary from 2% to 2.8%. The board determines what the benefit multiplier will be for non-union employees. Average monthly earnings is defined as an average over your highest 5 consecutive years of salary while you were employed. except for the Sheriff's Command Group, who has the highest 3 consecutive years. And credited service is defined as any month in which the employee is working at least 75 or 80 hours, depending on what their normal hours are. So we have 4 units that make up our retirement plan. We have the courthouse unit, and that's made up of 473 active members. That is our largest unit, obviously. Those are health department employees, courthouse employees such as information systems, building and grounds, prosecutor, court staff, and your staff here at the admin center. Then we have a sheriff's unit, and that has 162 active members. And that is made up of obviously the sheriff's office and dispatch. Riverwood is a unit within our county pension plan. Up until 1997, Riverwood was actually a county department. So that's where that stemmed from. And then Riverwood pays us to maintain their pension for them. They pay for the administrative fees. And then our road department. So how do you qualify for a monthly pension? New hires vest at 10 years of service, 8 years for the road department. Vesting means that then you have a choice of, if you stay here, obviously then you receive a monthly pension. If you leave us after 10 years, you can receive a refund or a rollover, and we'll go over that in another slide a little bit later. So normally, how do you qualify for a pension? You have to be at least age 60 with at least 10 years of service. The rule of 80 is another way to qualify. That is when your credited service and your age added together equals at least 80. Riverwood has the 2 requirements above, so the age 60 with 10 years of service, the rule of 80. And they also have what's called a 30 and out provision, which if you have 30 years of service, but you may not be age 60 yet, you can retire with full benefits. Sheriff and dispatch units have a 25 and out provision. So we currently have 786 retirees as of 12/31/22, which is our last actuarial valuation report. And we pay out roughly $17.8 million a year in pension. We have 69 vested deferred members. Those are people who had attained their 10 years of service and then left the county, but decided to leave their money in the plan and will come back then when they reach eligibility and draw a monthly benefit from the plan. So what type of payments do you get from the plan? When an employee goes to retire, we calculate based on the formula that we talked about with the 3 factors. And there are 6 different forms of payment that they can choose from. Straight life is a monthly benefit payable to the retiree for as long as he or she lives. In the event of their death, the retiree's beneficiary would receive a refund of any of their remaining contributions, provided they have any. This is the highest monthly benefit that a retiree will see, because again, this just pays for the retiree's lifetime only. There are also 2 joint and survivor options, a 100% option or a 50% option. The benefits, either one of those are payable to the retiree for as long as they live. In the event that the retiree passes away, their spouse would then receive their benefit based on what option they chose. So either 100%, which is what the retiree was receiving, or if the retiree chose the 50% survivor option, they would receive 50% of that amount. Yes.
So if the original owner was to pass away of the account and it went to their spouse, if that person was to remarry, does it end with that spouse?
No, it does. Remarried, it doesn't matter. It's a lifetime benefit for the retiree and then their spouse in the retiree's passing. And those are only spousal options. So then the next 3 options, the period certains, are 60 months or 5 years, 120 months or 10 years. 180 months, or 15 years. They all act the same. They're a monthly benefit payable to the retiree for as long as the retiree lives. They could provide a survivor benefit, but they're not guaranteed. So let's just take option 4, the period certain 5 years. Say that a retiree or an employee retires on 1/1/20, and that retiree dies 1/1/22. The retiree's named beneficiary, who does not necessarily need to be a spouse, so it could be a child, or anyone who has an insurable interest in the retiree's life. That retiree then would receive the benefit that the retiree, that retiree's beneficiary would receive the benefit the retiree receiving for the time period remaining. So in that scenario, then 3 years, and then the period ends. Likewise, if a retiree chose that option and they lived 6 years after they retired, there'd be nothing for that survivor or that beneficiary, because the period would be exhausted and all of the retiree's contributions would have been paid back to them. And the 10-year option and the 15-year option function the same way, just with a different time frame. So what happens if employment ends before retirement? So if an employee resigns or is terminated before they're eligible to retire, they can choose some different options. They can choose a refund of their contributions and the interest earned. There is a 20% federal tax withholding that we have to take off the top of that. They can choose a rollover of their employee contributions and the interest earned into a they can roll that into the 401k, another employer plan, a private IRA. If they have 10 years of service, they can vest, or what we call freeze, their pension, and then come back at age 55, draw early benefit, or age 60 and draw a normal benefit. So when you hear Commissioner Harrison talk about pension refunds and rollovers, these are the things that PHSC approves monthly. Our employees who have left us and are requesting either a refund or a rollover of their pension contributions and interest. And it's just the employee's contribution. The only way you see any benefit from the employer contribution is if the person actually draws a monthly benefit from the plan. So how is the pension plan funded? I'll talk briefly and then turn it over to Doug, our financial director. The plan is funded by employer contributions and investment earnings. Employee contributions are established by a collective bargaining, or for non-union employees by the Board of Commissioners. And employer contributions are determined each year based on the annual actuarial valuation report. Doug's going to do a dive into the financial part. Is there anything on the benefits in that I can answer for you? Mamie? Commissioner pension, you follow the courthouse unit. Commissioners are in the courthouse unit. Your benefit multiplier is a 2.2% multiplier. You have 5 years of your highest average earnings, 5 years of your earnings to determine your average monthly earnings. And you earn credited service for each month that you're employed.
Okay, so when you're no longer a commissioner, you get a check.
If you've reached the eligibility requirements that we talked about in the one slide. So having over 10 years of service, being at least age 60, that type of thing.
Maybe you have reached that.
You are fully eligible to retire, madam. Bob?
Are there any provisions for bringing in service such as from the military or anything else?
Yes, so the only thing that can be bought into our plan is active military service. And that has to be accompanied by a DD-214 to verify the time. And the individual cannot be eligible for any type of military pension based on that same time. And they have to already be vested in our plan. So the buy-in cannot vest them in our plan. The other thing that can be bought in is if you were a former county employee. So say that you worked maybe 5 years left here, took a refund or a rollover, and then you're like, you know what, the county wasn't so bad after all, and they come back and work 20 years and retire, they can buy that prior Berrien County credited service back into the plan. They have a certain window to do it, and it's, you know, quite expensive, but it can be done. And those again are approved, either military or prior credited service are approved by PHSC. Any other questions on benefits ends that I can answer? All right, Doug.
Good morning, everyone. So the older I get, the more I come to appreciate the plan we have. Given the marketplace and what's going on there and the volatility that we do see at times. Okay, so what I want to draw your attention to here this is a statement of changes in, they call it in fiduciary position. It shows you where we are at the beginning of the period, where we are at the end of the period or end of the year, and what additions or deductions have occurred in between. Draw your attention to the line that says net change in fair market value of investments. So we're going to talk in just a couple minutes, but we have an investment firm that we use for the available funds that are within this fund. What you're seeing here is the change in the value of that market value. So in the first year, you're seeing $8 million decrease, then you're seeing a $30 million increase, another $20 million increase, another $29 million increase, really, really decent returns. And we all saw that, you know, in the marketplace. And then this last year for 22, we lost $25 million. So in market value. So basically we erased everything, most of what happened in 2021. The contributions are made up of either employer or employee contributions. That contributions line in the center there is reflective of how much each has provided in that particular calendar year. So you're going to see, I'm going to go to the right-hand side. The employer contribution for year in 22 was $9,466,000. The employee contributed $3,395,000 to get you to the total of $12.8 million. The benefit payments, which are the actual checks that are being written to the employees and for their taxes and so forth, for the year ended 22 was $17,648,000. So you see a gap there between the 12 million and the 17 million. That's where we rely on those investments to be able to draw down on those investments. At the end of 22, our net position, which would have been any assets that we held minus any liabilities that would exist, we were sitting there with $191 million. Okay. And you can see how that has changed over time. The next slide, basically, I'm trying to provide you with a trend line here so that you can see the effect of what's going on. Benefit payments are that blue line. That's the checks we've written or the refunds that we've made to people who have left employment. So over time, you see that increase. That's driven partly by the number of employees, or to a great degree by the number of employees who have retired. The brown line is the employee and employer contributions, or that what we'll call the inflows. So you see that gap there between those two, and that really is what we have to cover with our Russell investments. Okay, so we would draw down about $5.8 million, almost $5.9 million in 2022 to cover that difference. Okay. This gives you, and this comes straight out of the budget book, which you have. With the most recent information, it shows you the pension funding over time. That net position is that blue line. The red or the light brown line is the actuarially calculated or accrued liability. So that goes back to Gabriel Roeder Smith, goes through the process of calculating what that liability would be based upon mortality, based upon inflation, and so forth. The pension funded trend line is really showing you where you would, on a percentage basis of where you would be at. That really it's basically your blue line divided by your brown line on the left-hand side. So we continue to see increases in that funded trend, which we saw the gains that occurred within our investments, but then we see it slide quite a bit in 2022 when we saw that loss. So when Gabriel Roeder goes through their calculation, they come back to us and tell us, in essence, what we need to plan on contributing in the following year. So in 2022, when this is calculated, it's actually done in early 23, we can't use it for 23. So the first applicable period would be 24. So this represents the county portion down below. At the bottom represents the percentage that the county has to contribute. That is also in your budget book shown in the trend line. The portion above that the member portion, that's what would be expected to be contributed on by them. Okay, and we can see that overall the change in the county portion evaluation, it's up about 1100%. Okay, so that then translates to what you see here, which is represented in your budget book, showing you that for the sheriff's unit, the contribution for 2024 will be 32.22% of their gross earnings. The courthouse is the bottom line at 15.38, and then the road department is the middle, which is 18.73%. Okay. So the county has contracted with Russell Investment Advisors to manage the financial aspects of the pension plan. They go out and they deal with the investment for the county. They also come back to us with reporting. We receive a report within finance on a monthly basis, and we record journal entries on that basis. But then they also come to us with a quarterly report, which shows us our investment status, what's changed, and really measures against the benchmarks that have been defined for each of those investment categories. And then they also come to us with recommendations for changes that would be suggested for the way or to change how we invest funds or new opportunities. And then that is a part of the county makes that decision. So this is just a snapshot of Russell Investments over the last few years. So what you're seeing here is at the beginning of 2018, they had $172 million in funds that they had invested. That's the market value of that. Okay, we see cash disbursements, which are funds that are drawn off and brought over for that pension payment we talked about earlier. Expenses paid, which are their management fee expenses, and then investment gains and losses. So that translates to that number you saw in that financial statement earlier. So you can see that for 2018, it slid from 172 million to 160 million. It dropped basically 7.2%. And you can walk across and you can see year by year the change. Again, we have conversations with Russell. They're coming to us also and telling us what they think the market's going to do. There are conversations that happen there. The last column is 2023 through October. So we started with $190.2 million. Again, this is the Russell piece, not the cash piece that we have here, which is around $1 million. The disbursements so far, we've drawn off $4,556,000. We've had fees incurred of $675,000, and then investment gains for the year so far of $1,857,000. So we are up we have had basically a 1% gain on the year on the original investment. Okay. So that gives you kind of an idea of what has happened over the course of time. It gives you, it doesn't explain all things. When it gets to the actuaries, it's a mystery to me sometimes. So with that, are there any questions that you folks would have? Yes, sir.
Look, I'm sure having our pension funded at 100% would be ideal.
Ultimately, that's where you want to get to. Yes.
As financial services director, what percent of the pension, what percentage funding makes you feel confident, or what's an industry kind of standard number you'd like to be hitting?
You know, I haven't seen anything from an industry standard perspective. I am not familiar. I don't know if you have any idea.
So the state they like to see the state likes to see the 70% funded level.
Okay.
And they also measure us on, thank you. They also measure us annually on that. And there are a couple different comparisons that happen. It may be what percent funded we are. It would also relate to what we see as a revenue stream coming through the county as part of that measure.
And do they take in the market volatility as well? And
it doesn't.
No, it's pretty much just a straight
Point in time.
70% that they like to see.
thank you.
We also have an annual summary report that we're required to put together. So I have multiple copies of that. If any commissioner would like them, I can put them on the table and you can grab them. Give them to Jim. Okay.
Sir.
But the state law does restrict some of the investments that Russell can make on our behalf.
They do.
And
They
so there's,
restrict the type of investments that you can have.
So if you go back in your presentation, there was a notation of Michigan Public Act 314. That is the standard that we have to maintain. We can't go over, like, you're allowed up to 70% in equities, 30% in fixed. Now there's various asset classes within those broad definitions, such as, international equities, emerging markets, that type of thing. So we have a position in multiple different types of equity classes, but we're only allowed to go up to 70%. And that's what causes some rebalancing within the investments also.
Are there any other questions? I had one just to jog my memory. At some point in time, we changed our rate of assumption, and that would reflect in those numbers as well, like what percentage is funded. Do you remember what year? Because we did it twice.
Yes.
We've done it multiple times.
Yeah.
We were, when the market was booming quite some time ago, we were at an 8% assumption. We're down now to 7%. The state kind of strongly suggested that plans adopt a 7% assumed rate of return.
Nice.
So we've done that twice. The last time would have been probably about a year ago.
Yeah, yeah.
We typically do that when the actuary comes in to report. They're the ones that make that recommendation because that has a inverse reaction to the employer contribution. Obviously, when you assume investments are going to return less, your contributions have to increase in order to fund the plan.
Right.
The interesting part is the state measures us on their basis, not the basis that we might use. If we said we wanted an 8% return on investment, they're still gonna measure us on the 7% basis.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Yarborough.
And that's what, when we made that report, because he came to us this month, November, October, things are going so fast. And our assumption was 7%, and they say we're at it. A lot of times you don't meet what the height you expect. So.
Right, and finances actually, I think today has a resolution to little changes to the investment policy. The change is basically getting rid of the asset class of commodities and allowing a little bit different makeup of the equity class.
There's another question from Commissioner Pitcher.
Yes, this is just some history for me. Was 2018 the first year that we contracted with Russell?
no, it goes back to 2014.
2014.
I showed it basically 5 years, tried to go back 5 years. The other chart that you saw, which gave the payments over time, that really goes back to 2014 when we started with Russell.
Okay.
It's very easy to get the rest of that. I just did not put that in this presentation.
And just a follow-up on that, what did we use before 2014? Was it a different?
We used a variety of managers at that point. Our style now is called manager of managers. So Russell is our investment manager, and then they manage the various asset classes. We used to have, what was it, about 6 or 7 different managers. So one for large cap equity, one for small cap equity, one for fixed income, one for commodities, and that got to be really cumbersome. So that's why we looked at the model of the of having one major one. And they're also a fiduciary to the plan. So they have legal requirements to us too, as the manager of managers.
Thank you.
Are there other questions, John?
Just a comment. Great presentation. Very simple and down to the point, and it was a great presentation. Hats off to both you guys for putting it together like that. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you very much for the update and just giving us that
Members of the board,
overview.
just as a follow-up to what Shelley and Doug just presented, we do quarterly meetings. There's a committee that's set up. You all get copies of the reports being reviewed by those committees. If you have questions, just between Doug, Shelley, and myself, we will happily answer any questions you have.
Thank you. All right, we're done with that presentation. So now we open it up for public comments. If there are any members who wish to address the board.
I just want to say I'm glad there's money there for January 1st.
Duly noted. Thank you, Sheriff.
I feel like the sheriff might be leaning towards retirement.
Yeah, it's possible. Other business.
Members of the board, we do have Warren in the room. I do want to just take a quick minute to make sure that you're all familiar with some changes that occurred. City of Benton Harbor had a millage get approved. Since he's here, I'd love to take a minute or two to just discuss the election result and what that means to the board. Warren, are you willing to hop up and just chat with us?
Yeah, definitely. Good morning, everyone. I didn't prepare anything, but I just wanted to be available if there was any questions or to address the election. When I presented apportionment last month, we fully anticipated two ballot proposals coming through in November that would affect 2023. Both of those ballot measures passed. So on your consent calendar, you now have an amended apportionment report approving the two rates that passed in November. There's a third rate that was just a correction. I mentioned it in a memo that I'm guessing was circulated to you, but it was, one of the school districts in their original request had requested more mills than was actually allowed by statute. So once that was brought to my attention, I looked into it and made the correction so that they're at a lower rate. It's not a surprise to them. They're the ones that pointed it out to me. So this was Bridgman Public Schools. So just keeping you informed on those changes.
All right, are there questions for Warren? I know that Commissioner Pitchford had one.
Warren, with the Benton Harbor millage passing, can you just help explain, like, if it's an increase, decrease, what it's going to do, what impact it might have, just on the budget itself?
Yeah, of course. It's the same. It's a renewal of a rate that they had previously had. 10 years ago, it was approved for 10 mills. And I think it had rolled back maybe once or twice over that 10-year period through Headley. Now in 2023, they've asked to renew that same 10 mills for operating purposes. But they've effectively accomplished a Headley override on that 10 mills because since it did expire at the end of 2022, when they renewed it for 2023, it's what I like to call a true renewal because it's a millage. Oftentimes when millages are renewed, they haven't technically expired yet. It's done kind of preemptively, but in this case, it had expired. So it is a true renewal. And as a result, it is the full 10 mills. So what that means from a budget point of view is you're working with the same rates, more or less, that they have been for the last 10 years. So not a big change. Other than I'm sure there's some internal changes with how it's allocated because typically they did all of their collection in the summer, but this year they'll be getting that extra 10 mills on the winter bill. So I'm sure there's some financial fancy work, light work. You get the idea. Yeah.
Thank you for giving us the update, Warren, and we appreciate all of what you do. And if there's no other questions for Warren, we can stand adjourned to go to our parent committees.
When we bring it back to the top. But you're gonna come back to see us.
Do you want these back? Or do you want me to leave them out?
Oh, sure. I'll
There's
take
only
it.
like 3.
Okay,
Thanks, Ellen.
you're welcome.
It's an increase over our prior,
Student email.
but we believe the result of the work here will actually decrease our overall expenses.
Right.
The reason for that is current Missouri had a large number of
So that's like 70.
They're gonna do a study.
Right.
That 200,000, which is gonna take 2 years to study.
No, and then the other thing I got something is we're gonna like.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, let me put it that. Well, we've got a contract.
They haven't done it.
So if that were.
I'm good. How about you?
A lot of work. Good to see you.
That's why we're pushing as hard to get this award done a month. But let me pull you the bid tab.
I'll be an admin.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up right now and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I mean, there are some counties.
You know, that's funny, because I looked at it, and it's like.
No, we're just gonna talk about what caused the sewer failure. And
I don't think we've ever actually interacted.
yeah. So we're gonna do concurrence from admin and finance. We'll run down scares. Do we go to admin
Go to
first?
finance first,
Finance.
where you normally go
Yep.
for your Q and A.
Yep.
They actually put him on the agenda so that if he needs more time, he can, because I've moved it to 10 o'clock for mine.
Okay, cool. So that's upstairs.